Hi, this is the first part of local Android tests, where we're gonna cover this category of tests. I went through the overview of this pyramid in the previous videos, so if you haven't seen it, check this out. I'm going through the whole overview. And there's gonna be at least 3 parts for covering this local category. Today we're gonna cover just the simplest local tests, and the next one is gonna be using Makita, and after that Roboelectric, because I want to show what you can achieve with each of them and have some practical examples, of course. So let's just create a new project. And once again, local unit tests are running on your computer and they don't have any access to Android framework. And we've got a sample test here already, and this is how you create small tests. Just annotate them with the add test annotation. And I wanna go right into examples. In this video I'm gonna have 2 examples. First one is gonna be extracting the first name from full name, and the second one is JSON parsing. And here's the test-driven development cycle, which starts somewhat here. So you start with the writing tests, then they fail, and only then you go and write your implementation. And then after all tests passed, you're basically done with this method and you write new tests for another method. So everything starts with test. So let's call it first name extractor, and it's gonna be just a stop method to extract first name. So here's the naming convention for test method that I've found is commonly used, and I think it makes the most sense. First goes the method name that you're testing, then input that you give to the method, and the result that it should give with the given input. And basically that's it. So first, before writing test, you need to come up with the possible inputs. First two in my mind is always null and empty string. So let's write a extract first name, then null input underscore, and result that we expect to return. Here's our first test. We assert that with given null input it returns empty string, and we still continue writing test for the rest of the cases. So the second one is gonna be an empty string. Here's the input and the empty string input. The second case is correct input, which is a full name. Should return correct, and I'm just gonna declare a constant here for my name, and here's the input we give. And now let's I think just to wrap it with some white spaces. With in a different way, like in the end or in the middle, in different places. And the result should be still correct. The next one is I think just given a first name, should return correct, and first name with spaces again should return correct. So it's something like that. And now the final case is I think just more than 2 words, should still return correct, and the same with the weird white spaces around. I think this will do. We don't include the lowercase to camel case conversion because that's a completely different method to test. And now let's run all our tests. Alright, all of them failed, and now we go to the second step of the cycle, which is refactoring to pass tests. So first we need to handle null input and empty string. We return empty. Let's run our tests. Here are two of them already passing. So next I'm thinking about just trying to use a simple string. What's the method name here that returns char array? It's a split method with the white space, and return the first word. A simple solution, and let's try if it works. Yes, it passed most tests, but not all of them because of the white spaces. And here it's really nice. You can see which tests failed over here and which passed. And let's continue the cycle and refactor our method even more. So obviously split doesn't work, just returning split. I think we need to iterate over split and check if this word is not a white space. By the way, you see here I've got 8 test methods here for just a simple method, and you could have just written the one test method and test all the cases in just one test method and check for crashes over here, but it's way more readable to write it this way because it's really readable over here, and you want to keep your test as lean as possible with the least possibility of you writing bugs in actual tests, which is possible if you make your tests messed and complex. So here let's check which one failed. You see the first name with white spaces, full name around white spaces again, and the same white spaces again. So those are the only 3 that failed. That's why we need to iterate over and check if this word is not empty. Then return a word. Alright, and all tests passed now. This concludes our first example to extract first name. Alright, and the second example will be to parse JSON, a response from a server. So parsing JSON is simple if it's your backend and all the fields make sense and you wanna use all of them. But if you're using a public API and it's deep nested and maybe names are even different that you would want to use, and basically you just don't need most of the data, it's just redundant, then you would want to parse JSON, and it's not that hard anyway. So I'm gonna use a JSON library. Let's add it to our dependency. So the example I'm gonna use is the Google Maps API place endpoint. So if you've ever used it, you know that it returns plenty of fields. Here's an example of me querying for Dallas, and it returns the information for this city with the location and different stuff, which most of it I don't want. I just wanna use city name and latitude, longitude, right? And I want it to be flat. Here it's really deep nested, and this name I don't want to use this name. I just want to name it city name or name. So first, of course, you need to some stub data. So let's create a location class with the fields like city name and latitude, longitude. Alright, here is our module. Let's close it. And our stub method to parse JSON. With the static location. Parse location from JSON. And here's the input with JSON, and just return null for now, so we can continue writing our tests. Let's create a different test class, JSON test. I've already put here all the possible inputs because I don't want to bug you with those. And the best approach is to save JSON inputs as JSON files, not as strings, because those are gonna look messy. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 possible inputs that I came up with which is the correct JSON. Here's, you see, results array, which has a JSON object where formatted address is our city name. Then there is a geometry JSON object, then there is nested location and latitude longitude, and all the possible variations of results from Maps API. Here's empty results. Here's there's no city name, no city and location, no geometry object, no latitude, no location object, and no results array at all, just all the different ones. And here's a helper class that reads those JSON files into a string, so that then we can use JSON to parse it. First, I'm gonna declare some constants. The correct is actual this one. Correct latitude is here, and longitude this one. Alright, and then a JSON inputs. I'm just gonna name them after file names, so it's easier. Here's our 9 inputs, and now let's start writing tests. Again, using the same naming convention. Goes the tested method name first, then give an input. First, let's start with a null input, or it should return empty location. So it's a JSON parser, parse location from string, null location, and assert that get city name is null. Should go null value. Get latitude should give let's create a constant for 0 like null coordinate, which is a double. So it should give a null coordinate, and get longitude the same, null coordinate. Then the second condition is gonna be empty input, which is just an empty string. And I can extract those assertion into a method. Assert that location is empty. Replace those. The third test, I think, is gonna be empty JSON. The same location result should be empty. And then there's gonna be just a string input, not a JSON. JSON input. Still same result. And now we can finally start issuing our inputs. So first we need to read our JSON files, and you use it with the before method, which is called before running all tests. You just need a class loader, which is and it takes a JSON file name .json. Oops, no. And I just wanna assign those right into my fields. And I'm gonna copy a pre-written test because I don't wanna take a time by writing those. But basically they cover all those 9 JSON inputs and check for correct results. For example, if the JSON input has no city, then it should have no city. Here's the results. If JSON input has no latitude, then it still has the correct city name, but latitude is null. Longitude is correct though. And now let's start implementing our method. First I want to see all my tests failing. Okay, and now I'm gonna handle a null JSON input or empty string first. Then I would return an empty location. Run test again, and if you already passed empty input and null input. So now I'm just gonna use the correct JSON input for handling the correct input case first. Okay, and here I've handled the correct input JSON and this test passed now. Those remaining failing tests are tests with some missing fields, so let's just handle all of the fields, and before retrieving them I'm gonna check if it's there in the JSON. Let's test now. Okay, and most of the tests passed. The only remaining is not a JSON input, so it throws an exception here. So I can fix it just by wrapping it all in try catch, and it automatically suggests JSON syntax exception, which is the correct one. Let's try it now. And all tests passed, which means that our method can handle all the possible input without throwing exception and crashing our app. So those were two examples of using local unit tests. In the next post we're gonna discuss Mockito library, and the source code you can get on GitHub. Link is in the description. Stay tuned, subscribe, and talk to you later.